Hey guys, how are you doing? I hope that everything is going well for you, and welcome back to Modern English Grammar. I would like to talk with you today about what we call constituent structure tests. And it's important to keep in mind that when we say constituent, that means exactly the same thing as phrase. So when we're looking at the constituent structure of a sentence, we're looking at its phrase structure. We're asking the question, what are the phrases that make up this sentence? And if you think about it, that's really the most basic question that we could ask about an English sentence. How is it divided up? How do we determine, let's say, that the subject of the sentence is one phrase and the predicate of the sentence is another phrase and the direct object of the sentence is yet another phrase? What leads linguists to think that certain parts of a sentence constitute a phrase while others do not? So, as I promised you last time, today we're going to talk about the logical reasoning behind the idea that sentences are made up of phrases. So in other words, we're going to approach English, and if we were talking about another language, we would approach that in the same way by asking, how is it that English behaves? What do people do when they speak English, and what do they not do? What are some sentences that just don't sound like English sentences, even though we would know what they mean, but it just sounds unusual to say a sentence that way? We're going to look at a lot of examples of that today. So we're talking about constituent structure tests. Constituent structure tests are exactly the same as phrase structure tests. So, what is a constituent structure test? It's a way to know that a given string of words in a sentence is a phrase or is not a phrase. So we say that a given string of words in a sentence functions as a phrase in a sentence, or that it does not function as a phrase in that sentence. So our first test is going to be what we're going to call the movement test. And this was discussed in the chapter from the book, Analyzing Sentences, which you have a copy of that you can download. You can also, of course, if you have purchased a copy of the book, then that's fine. But you do not need to purchase a copy of the book. So in the book, they talk about examples of sentences like, I like the blueberry bagel. So first off, notice that this sounds like a pretty natural sentence of English, right? If someone came up to you on the street and they said, I like the blueberry bagel, you might wonder, well, why are you telling me this stuff? Like, I don't even know you. But it would sound like an English sentence. Whereas if somebody came up to you on the street and they said, bagel, blueberry, then I like guy, you'd probably have a different reaction to that person. Like, what happened? What is going on? Why did that person speak in that way? And you would probably be concerned about that person because in English, it's not an option to speak like that. So in English, we unconsciously follow the rules of English grammar. We unconsciously construct sentences that are made up of phrases. And when we try to invent sentences that are not made up of phrases, the sentences sound like really unnatural sentences. And the way that we're going to show those unnatural sentences is by putting a little star before the sentences. So the only thing that the star means is that if someone were to say that sentence to you, you would think to yourself, wait a minute, that doesn't sound normal. That doesn't sound like a sentence of English. I wouldn't say it that way. Okay? That is the only thing that that means. And you'll sometimes see that referred to in the book as grammatical. It's a grammatical sentence. What we mean by grammatical, of course, is, as we were talking about last time, nothing to do with prescriptive rules of grammar. Has nothing to do with the idea about don't split infinitives or don't use double negatives or all of those rules that certain groups of people who happen to have power came up with and decided that they wanted everyone else to speak like them. So there's no basis scientifically for prescriptive rules. These rules are rules that are natural in your language, and the only thing you need to ask yourself is, how does that sentence sound to me? If it sounds weird, then we say it's unacceptable, and we mark it with the star. So it's really important to keep those two notions apart. Anything that sounds like something, just imagine somebody coming up to you and saying that sentence. If you would be really surprised at the way that they said it, and you would have to pause and really think about how to put the words together, that is an unacceptable sentence. That's a starred sentence. If the sentence sounds natural, then it's going to be, it could be a really weird sentence, right? You could say, I went to the baseball game today and recognized many purple elephants running in the pathway from beyond the court. And I think that it's the case that you don't play on a court when you play baseball, right? I'm not sure, because when it comes to academic sports like linguistics, I'm there, but the other ones are a little confusing. So regardless of the fact that that's a really weird sounding sentence, you would, if somebody came up to you and said that sentence, you'd just be like, what are you talking about? You're talking about purple elephants and baseball games. How does this all relate? It's not logical. But you would understand the meaning of that sentence, even though it's a weird meaning. So these sentences are unusual. We have sentences which are less common. Nevertheless, they sound like English sentences. They have the form of an English sentence. So this is really what we're trying to get at. What is it that is common to all of the English sentences that sound like regular English sentences versus all of the sentences that do not sound like English sentences? What determines if a sentence is natural sounding or not? So that's what we're going to explore.